Hello, I'm Olivia Pita, and this is a demo of the classwork I'm doing for programming in C# in Unity. The goal of this project was to create a game of Pong that was multiplayer through a network. In order to simulate a network, I'm using ParallSync, this tool up here, and as you can see, I've got the first version of the game, the original of the game, and this is a clone of the game, so it's two projects running at the same time through this particular tool. And so now I'll start them both up. They both go in the game mode, and they both have this component, Network Manager. So I'll go down here, start a host on the one, and then the other, I need to join as a client. Start client. Alright, and now you can see the two games are properly synced up. Let's click restart on player 1 here and just watch them bounce around a little bit. You can see I can control one player and it will also move on the other screen. And if I move this player on this screen, it's reflected over here as well. You can see some jittering with the ball and some lagging. It's not perfect. This was as good as it had to be for the purposes of this project. Stopping them both now. Alright, next I will walk through some of my code. Let's start with the game manager script. So, every script that uses netcode will need to be a network behavior instead of a mono behavior. The first thing we do here is we make two network variables for the player's scores. On start, we identify the ball object, set the player's scores both to 0, and then when a player scores, this will get called by a different script later on. So the scoring script will be called, and only the host is supposed to count up the score, because if the client tried to do it as well, that would get things confused. So the host's game manager detects if the wall is the right wall, then it gives the player 1 an extra score. If it's the left wall, player 2 scores up. On GUI, it is just, we've got the scores displayed here. The host also gets this restart game button, which sets everything back to 0 and sets the ball back to its initial position. And if either player's score reaches 10, the game will end with the appropriate "this player wins" message. Next, we'll do the ball control script. The ball has a rigid body 2D. As soon as the game starts, we're almost immediately going to set the ball rolling. I called that script GoBall. Invoke actually makes it delay by however many seconds. I set to delay to 2 seconds. Just give the players a moment to prepare. Alright, the ball's movement begins. We choose a random player to point it towards, and it sets off in that direction. Reset ball. Ball goes to 0 velocity and goes back to its initial position. Restart game starts a new game. It resets the ball and gets the ball rolling after only 1 second. And here's the collision with the paddles. So when the ball collides with a collision body, if it is a player, then we set off the ball at a new speed and at a new angle depending on the speed of the paddle that it hit. Admittedly, I got these numbers from a tutorial. I wouldn't have known just right off the bat how to do the calculation. But hey, that's what learning is for. Next, let's do player controls. We've got the key codes for up and down movement hard-coded in. The speed and the bound Y determines how high up or low the ball is allowed to go. How high or low the paddle is allowed to go. Got start positions for both players, rigid bodies, and connect them to the network manager. Now this was a bit tricky. Setting the paddle in the correct starting position depending on whether it's player 1 or player 2. Each player's paddle should only be set by the player's game manager or the network manager. So it only matters, is this the owner? And then if it's the server or the host, it goes on the one side. If it's not, therefore a client, it goes on the other side. When you update the paddle, if it is the owner, this is the movement code. So if up is pressed, move up. If down is pressed, move down. Otherwise, stop. And this code here stops it from going too high or too low on the Y. Here's the code for the side walls. Now the top and bottom walls, they just need to be rigid bodies that the ball will bounce off. But the side walls, of course, need to be triggers. So here's the code for them. First, they identify the game manager, and then whenever the ball triggers them, we store the wall's name and send it to the score function in the game manager. And so that's how the game manager knows, did this hit the left wall or the right wall. And then we restart the game. This is not actually setting the score back to 0, it's just putting the ball back in the initial position and starting rolling. To wrap up, here's one last look at my scene. Got camera, background, we have the network manager, the HUD, the walls, you can now see them outlined, and the ball. Notice there's no paddle in the sample scene because each client or each host brings its own paddle in through the code. Alright, that's it for now. Have a good day.